Good morning, friends, and welcome to another Mercy Moment and Emery episode. Yesterday was Christmas, and it was so peace filled, so encouraging, and it was a day of rest, much needed rest. So thankful to have Emery home after all the battles, after all the adventures, and after all of the attacks on her life as she coded over 20 times with chest compressions since we arrived in Colorado alone. It seems crazy to say that. It's a pretty intense number, and oh my goodness, so many heart pounding moments. But this morning, I wanted to invite you into my day in what I'm going through right now, as it's hard to believe we're just days away from the end of 2018, going into a new year, 2019. And I'm going through the book of Judges right now. The body of believers that we've become a part of, Cherry Hills Community Church. We're doing a Bible in a year, and we're 100 plus days into our journey. And we're going through the book of Judges right now, and I just had to share what I received this morning, as I believe it's so fitting as Kimberly and I step into the new year, as Emery's caregivers, as we step into a new season. We're so thankful to be out of the hospital. Can't emphasize that enough. It's so weird now that we're done with the hospital, and it was almost 7 months, 3 hospitals in 2 states. It feels like it never happened. It's so weird how that works once we're out of it. It feels like it was years ago. It's very weird, but we step into this new season, and you, my friends, all of us step into a brand new year, 2019. I believe this word is going to strengthen you, it's going to encourage you, and it's going to help you step into the new year instead of a place of weakness, a place of doubt, a place of discouragement, a place of skepticism, rather to step into it in a place of strength, a place of encouragement, and a place of hope. Because hope, as I've said before in other episodes, is like oxygen. Without hope, you won't have strength to keep going. As I've said in an episode quite a while ago now, looking at Hebrews 12, 1 through 3, at Jesus' example in suffering, the keys to unlocking grit and fortitude, it was for the joy set before him that he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He was fueled by hope. The joy set before him was hope. So let me share this word, because I know many of you, it's easy to get beaten down, discouraged, and frustrated with life, and for pessimism to set in, that life is just hard, difficult, and whatever else you want to insert in there. And it's interesting, the book of Judges there's a pattern that follows where Israel, the people of God, have been walking with him, and they enjoy a season of blessing. They become too comfortable in that, and then they rebel against him and serve other gods and do exactly what God says not to do, which puts them in a place of bondage, slavery, and oppression, because disobedience leads to oppression. That's something that needs to sink in. Disobedience always leads to oppression, I would say depression as well. You're then to feel off when you disobey the living God, because he is Lord of heaven and earth, and he is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, this he will also reap. So you can't do what God says not to and expect his blessing. That's tempting Christ and will always lead to confusion, depression, and being oppressed, oppression from enemies. So God would raise up these people, discipline his people, and where we're stepping in, we're stepping into Judges just in the first few chapters here, and God sent a people group called the Midianites, and they were heavily oppressing Israel, to the point that we meet a man named Gideon here in chapter 7 of Judges, and this man is threshing wheat in a wine press. It's interesting. A threshing floor is usually pretty pretty open. It's out in the open, but he's in a wine press, a more secluded place because he didn't want the Midianites to find him. So he's in a place of fear, and he's in a in a really low place, I would say. And it says, this is crazy, the identity God speaks to him says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." It says here in chapter 6, verse 12, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." So here's a man that's afraid, and he's living out of fear, threshing wheat in a wine press. And this is the identity spoken to him. First of all, the Lord is with you. And that changes everything through our journey. I've said this time and time again. Because he is with us, everything changes. That has been my strength through some of the most heart-pounding, heart-wrenching, and overwhelming times of the last 17 months. The Lord is with you. This reality is life-giving. I want it to sink into your soul. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. So God spoke into his life before he even was living that reality. He spoke that existence. He spoke that reality into existence. He spoke hope. He spoke truth over his life. Even though he wasn't living that, that's what was spoken into him, because the Father sees what he created us to be, and he sees what the potential we have. I want you to hear this, friends. It truly is life-changing. That he sees what you are, the potential you have. Instead of where you're at, see past that. Let the Father speak to your heart this morning. Because identity precedes action. Just as one of favorite guys to listen to is just on fire, Todd White says, "I'm not a doobie. I'm not doing to become." That's Catholicism, that's religion, where you do to become. It's religion, doing to become. I'm a be-do. Out of my being, I do, because of who God says I am, because of the reality that he says that I'm a son. Just as the Apostle John said, "How great is the love the Father has lavished upon us, that we should be called children of God," and that is what we are. This will change your life. This will change your 2019. If you realize what God says about you, and you step into that, you submit to Jesus as Lord, you then become a son or daughter of the living God. And if God is your Father, the one who breathed the galaxies, who nothing is impossible for, what do we have to be afraid of? And if he is with us, what can stand against us? So this is powerful identity language here. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. He is the mightiest of warriors. Jesus defeated the grave. He defeated sin and death. He stripped it of its power. And he calls us to follow in his footsteps of eternal victory. And it's pretty crazy. He then commands Gideon, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of the Midian's hands. Am I not sending you?" The power of who sends you changes everything, friends. And Midian's still skeptical. He's like, "Please show me a sign. I need something." And he brings a sacrifice, and it's consumed with fire. His explanation: so Gideon built an altar to the Lord and called it, "The Lord is Peace." So he had an encounter with God, changed the whole trajectory of his life. So I'm saying, are you seeking him as we come to the end of 2018? How we leave is how we enter. seek him, because if you encounter the King of Kings, you will not be the same, and you're going to go in strength instead of weakness into this new year. So he has this encounter that leads him to go seek out men, and he does some cool things. If you read in chapter 6 and 7, it's profound. And he gathers men, and he gathers up, it looks like here, 32,000 men to go against Midian. This people was immense. It was very overwhelming, a lot of people. But the Lord tells him, hey, you have too many. They're going to think it was their strength. So he instructs Gideon to tell the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead where they were camping out. So he says, if you're afraid, go ahead, you can turn back. You don't have to go to war. And check this out, the numbers are staggering. So 22,000 men left. Have you ever felt alone, friend? Have you ever felt like, man, everyone is afraid and they're turning back and there's only a few of us left? Well, I'm sure Gideon's men felt that way because 22,000 left while 10,000 remained. Over half, more than 2/3, turned around in fear. So when God calls us to something, not everyone's going to go with us. So as Jesus speaks to your heart, he gives you clear vision and instructs you what to do. Don't expect others to follow you in it. Many are afraid. Few are called, or many are called, few are chosen, Jesus said. So be encouraged with whatever God's called you to do. It doesn't matter who goes with you. What matters is he is with you. That changes everything. The key to courage, confidence, and strength, friends. But then God says again, hey, you have too many men. 10,000 too many. Need to cut the ranks again. So he instructs them to go to a river and to have them all drink water. And it says that 300 of the men lapped up the water. But the rest kneeled down and were a little more formal. And God says to Gideon, with the 300 men who lapped, I will save and give the Midianites into your hands. 300 men, friends. That's crazy. 300. So he went from 32,000 to 300. So what goes against common sense is often the way the Father operates, because he doesn't operate on our level of thinking. His thoughts and his ways are so much higher than ours, and he can be trusted. And the power of this story, of this account, is that Gideon trusted the Lord, and the result is astounding. With 300 men, because God was with him, because the living God was with him, because the Father was with him, he defeated a Midian camp that was so big. It says in this chapter that the camels of the Midianites outnumbered the grains of the sand. There were so many people, but one of the Midianites had a dream that stirred fear in the camp. And Gideon was still uncertain, but the Lord instructed him to go down to their camp of the Midianites, and he heard this man who had a dream. And the interpretation was, Gideon is about to take us out. So, because God was for him, no one could stand against him. And with 300 men, he defeated the Gideon camp. So I don't know what stands against you as you end 2018. But my question is the Father with you? Have you received the identity he gives that empowers you to overcome no matter what comes against you? Because if he is for you, nothing can stand against you. May we be renewed, strengthened, and encouraged to seek him with our whole heart as we end this year, to go into it with all the strength of his might, instead of our own, instead of with resolutions. Let's go into it with his visions, his dreams, and His plans for our life as we've diligently sought Him in His identity. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. I love you guys, and may your identity be established, and your life will then follow.